And I know we've addressed this in some of your other videos, but I think it's so important to talk about, especially how far you've come in your recovery. What have you done to recover from these experiences?
Well, like I said, I've gotten help. I've been through counseling sessions more than once to really get a sense of where this is going to, how this is going to fit into my business life, my emotional life, my spiritual life, every aspect, and what I will actually do to have a complete and satisfying time for however much time I have left on this earth. But eating healthy, exercising, and living a life of purpose. I think that being able to take care of myself at those rudimentary levels was the thing that I had to work the hardest on, especially coming off of 17 and a half years of alcohol and drug addiction, and then kind of one at a time addressing some of the other issues of processed foods, or maybe not exercising consistently, or other things of that nature. So just being gentle with myself and taking care of myself. I remember at first a lot of times it would be something that I would have to get angry about, if it was a situation where taking care of myself was not looked on as the right thing to do or whatever. But now it's unacceptable for me not to take care of myself. I don't have to be as harsh. And I'll give you an example. I go with my girlfriend to her parents' house, and they don't eat the kinds of foods that I eat, and I generally, kind of walk a balance of bringing some of my own types of foods that I know are good and healthy for me, and and at the same time, making it a point to eat a meal with them, and not, but really, sometimes I have to take the ribbing and the jokes about the good food, the eating grass or whatever, the whole foods and organic foods, but I'm usually getting this from somebody who has extreme health problems from eating processed foods, and it's increased fourfold over the past 20 years, and people are a lot more unhealthy than they've ever been, or more people diagnosed with all kinds of things that there's a strong correlation could be related to the kind of foods that we eat. So I look at that as, in my mind, as pressing as alcoholism and drug addiction, but obviously, eating a dozen donuts is not going to land you in jail, but it still has consequences that will far outweigh being able to live a normal and healthy, productive life.
Absolutely. In our society, where we don't want to talk about sex, or especially sexual violence, and you as a male have come out and done so much positive work at the university level, at the societal level, how has this helped your recovery experience?
It's just part of my purpose. And it took a long time to get to that point of, okay, all right, God, this is what I'm going to do. And I liken it to a joke that one of the comedians made. He said there's a homeless guy walking down the street. He's, talking to himself, arguing with himself or whatever, and the comedian said, well, what if he's not arguing with himself? Maybe he's talking with God, and God is telling him, hey, he's the chosen one, and the guy's like, I don't want to be the chosen one. I don't want to be the one to do that, and I kind of liken it to that, you know what I mean? But through hundreds of conversations and, like one that I had with a friend of mine just recently. She was abused when she was a kid, and she said to me, she goes, "Don't you feel like you're damaged goods?" And I said, I don't feel that way. You know, I've had psychology professors, you know, I talked to one guy, said, he goes, well, maybe this is just as good as it's going to get. You know, I mean, where I was at that particular time around the abuse, and I hadn't really gotten to the point where I knew this is something that I needed to talk about openly and honestly, freely, to help other survivors. And I didn't accept his, you know, opinion on that either. I mean, he was definitely helpful in a lot of areas, but as good as it's going to get. I mean, I kind of take it back to when I was drinking. I didn't want to have just one drink. I wanted to have, you know, 10 drinks. I wanted the maximum effect. And with life and sobriety and having a life of purpose, I want to have the maximum effect. And being able to give a voice to survive, you know, from survivors, you know, to the general public, and to hopefully some offenders somewhere down the line, that having that purpose and pursuing that purpose will actually kind of help turn the tide a little bit, and a little bit at a time, inspiring other people to speak out and do the same thing. Because there was a part in my recovery that I was like, okay, you know, I just want to leave that behind me, you know, and not deal with it. And I found that the part of the recovery process for me that has been so beneficial and so valuable is the continuing to put that out there, continuing to speak about it, continuing to speak on the behalf of survivors, you know, because not every survivor is going to speak up, you know, and if that were the case, then you would see, you know, you would have hundreds of thousands of men and women coming out and speaking about this, but you know, that's obviously not the case. And if it's not the case, and the numbers are what we think they are, then there's a real problem, and that real problem is only going to be addressed by opening the conversation. And for whatever reason, I have the desire, purpose, and willingness to do that, and to continue to do that is something that I think is of value, and will actually result in things maybe changing. If not just a little bit, maybe it's just an attitude, maybe it's just a more receptive or responsive ear to a survivor, you know, from friends or what have you. So that's kind of why I'm doing these videos.
Yeah, and being an excellent role model and being an excellent leader, too. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What were the best ways people in your life supported you?
I was given a lot of autonomy. And I look back on that as, you know, there was a lot of, that had a lot of negative consequences, but I think it had more positive than negative in the as a whole. And I believe that, you know, if it weren't exactly the way that everything went down, and learned the exact things that I learned from my mother, from my family, from all of these experiences, that I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I would definitely not want to be anyone else.